Bonjour, peeps. Hi, this is Neshi Lokatz. Welcome to Star Nation's organization's main fan page here on Facebook. And this live stream is about the card draw of the day. I usually do this in the morning, but it was kind of busy this morning, so we had to push it to this afternoon. So welcome. It's Tuesday, August 21st. That's it, August 21st. And here in Toma, where I live, it is cloudy and kind of drizzly. It's 65 degrees out. After, was it a week ago? I think it was a week ago. We had like 96 degrees. So it's quite a difference in temperature. Yeah, it's time for a little bit warmer clothing, just a little bit anyway. Hey, Rochelle. Good. She's saying hello, waiting with bated breath. Well, I'm hoping to be able to give you some information maybe that I'll go, right? Yeah. And Rochelle's saying that their weather in Michigan near her is pretty much the same as here. So yeah, this is I'm broadcasting from Star Nation's Academy. I like broadcasting from here because it's so quiet. Much more peaceful and a little bit slower energy here than down at the house. It's just a house where I run my business out of and take care of my mom and that kind of stuff. But it can get kind of busy there. Yeah, very busy sometimes. So today's card draw, for those who might be just joining us and don't know what this live stream is all about, just about every day, I draw a card to see what the energy is like for the day and what kind of energy is most important for us to know about, right? And I've been doing a card draw like this for a lot of years, actually. But it wasn't until this past fall in 2017 that I started, putting down a quote from the card draw on Star Nation's Instagram account. And then in May, I had this big light bulb idea that maybe there are some people in our community who would enjoy kind of the backstory of the card draw and have a conversation about it, right? So we started doing live streams. I had chosen to do them in the morning at 10 a.m. Central Time. But found that sometimes I needed to either slide it into the afternoon like we're doing today, right? Which is nice. Yeah, it's all right. Hey, Rob Candle joined us. Hi, Rob. Must be listening in from work, huh? So the cards that we're using now, we just switched over to a different card deck. I think it was at the end of July. And so this is the card deck that we're using right now. It's the Sacred Geometry Oracle deck by Francine Hart. And I have to tell you that this was the very first Sacred Geometry card deck I ever got. It's the only one I use. And that I got this back in 2002. She had just published in 2001. And so, one of those synchronicities, right? I had just dove into the deep end with the Sacred Geometry and the Merkaba information and had activated my Merkaba back in 2001. And I was at I think it was either a Feng Shui conference or it was the Goddess Conference. I don't remember which one now, but I found the card deck. It was for sale, right? And so I bought it. I think they only had like 2. Yeah. So anyway, I do use this, and I like the information about the Sacred Geometry stuff. So I hope you enjoy it with the card draw today. Rob's saying off topic and political, but what? You're leaving me hanging, Rob. But what? Francine Hart, who the author of this book and card deck, how she has organized the process or the procedure for the card draws is that we get 2 cards, not one. We get 2 cards. And the first card in the layout is taken in with the male energies of logic and thought, representing grandfather sky. So it's a masculine energy, right? And the second card goes into the layout on the left-hand side, and that is the feminine side. And so we take in that information through our intuition and our heart, our feelings and our emotions, and it represents Grandmother Earth, right? So here is what Francine does with this, is that the information then, when it comes to us, is coming to us in a balanced way. And I call it, it's whole, WHOLE, in a sense, because it balances. It's a unified field at that point, right? Yeah. Balancing the male and female energies. Rob is saying Michael Cohen just surrendered to the FBI. They're expected to disclose a plea deal at 4:00. Really? Isn't that interesting? When you take a look at, we just literally came out of Mercury retrograde. We're still in the shadow of the Mercury retrograde, but it's interesting. That, what does Julie say? That Mercury has turned around and is now marching forward, right? And so change, right? The flow of energy changes, and that is extremely interesting. Yeah. Even though we are a spiritual community, we talk about spirit all the time, and we talk about ritual and ceremonies and all kinds of stuff that has to do with spirit. We still are here living in a human body, physical body, and experiencing our life lessons in a physical body here on the earth plane. And I do believe in balance. And so information like this, Rob, is good because we need to have the information. We don't have to be in the drama of the soap opera called The White House with terrible writers. But we do need to know and be aware of the changes that occur. And if we can see those changes, take them in and look at them from a wider or expanded view, sometimes in a higher vibrational view, to see what's really going on, what really is happening underneath the veneer, right? So thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it. And let's see what Francine says about the cards that were drawn this morning, and see how this with Michael Cohen plays out. Okay. How it unfolds, I should say. All right, so the very first card that came this morning is this one. It's called the Golden Mean. And many of you might recognize this, right? From a feng shui perspective, when we're laying out furniture and that sort of thing, we take this divine proportion, the golden mean, into consideration. So I can hold the card here. So this larger area is where we would put most of the living area, like the couches and those kinds of things in this area, right? This area back here would be for things like credenzas and televisions and that sort of thing, if we can do it, right? Not all spaces can we fit everything that needs to be in the smaller portion of the golden mean through here. And Karen Geraldine, who is one of our contributing writers at Star Nations, she really does talk a lot about the golden mean and the Fibonacci and design, okay, within the earth energies too. And so that's the name of her column, is Earth Energies. So this divine proportion, you'll feel more than you'll actually see. if you are aware of divine proportion, when you walk into a room or a building, you certainly can see it. But more often than not, we feel it. We feel it because it's in that proportion. That's the only way I can describe it. It feels comfortable. It actually, these are the places that we stand back and we think, God, isn't that beautiful? I just love this room kind of feeling to it. Mm-hmm. Yep. Rob said soap opera, more like WrestleMania. Well, let's put it this way. The last time I watched a soap opera, right? It's kind of like Dallas. Do you remember that? Back in the old days, the 80s, the old nighttime soap operas. Everybody was plotting against each other, right? All right. Hey, Mary joined us. Mary Summers. Hi, Mary. I'm glad you're here with us. With the divine proportion, here's what Francine has to say about it. She says the golden spiral is the cosmic representation of ideal balance. It has universal harmony and spiritual transformation, right? And so it's when we're walking into a space, a living space, or sometimes historical spaces are like this, is that what we're feeling is a universal harmony. She says that the spiral is the blueprint of all nature and indeed of humanness. From the double helix of our DNA to the spiral shape of the galaxies, this piece of sacred geometry is container and accelerator of consciousness. And when we expand, this is the shape that we expand from. The golden mean, a divine proportion, has a distinct beginning, but no end. In other words, the end goes into infinity and into infinity and beyond. And so there's a distinct beginning, but no end. And that's the golden mean. Okay. She says this card connects you to the primordial whirlpool of creation, the cosmic soup from which we all emerged. She says that we are not separate from God. We are not alone in the vastness of time and space. You are unity and oneness. She says that taking this into your everyday life, it becomes clear that there is no us or them, no separateness. Realization, the sacredness of the golden spiral, and rejoice in knowing that you are part of the life flow of the universe and one with all that is. That's the golden mean, right? It's where we all came from out of creation, which means that we're all connected, we're all related, and that we're not alone, and that we are included in the oneness. We are the oneness, which is kind of, it's a peaceful kind of statement, I think. And those that feel separate or think about separateness, they got some soul growth to do, obviously, and also when you're feeling lonely and separate, in my world anyway, that means that we're disconnected from nature. We're disconnected from Grandmother Earth. And as soon as we turn our attention to her and spend time in nature, spend time with her, that loneliness starts to fade. I'm not saying it goes away, but it starts to fade. It's more manageable, right? Yeah, that's my 2 cents anyway. The one thing that I want to say about this, that she kind of gets into a little bit, Francine does. She says there's a series of numbers called the Fibonacci series. I know it as a Fibonacci ratio. And she doesn't really go into it much in her description. She just states it. The Fibonacci ratio is 0 plus 1 is 1. 1 plus 1 is 2. 1 plus 2 is 3. 2 plus 3 is 5. 5 plus 3 is 8. And so you're adding those two numbers together to get to the next, right? That's the Fibonacci ratio. It looks very, very similar to the golden mean. Fibonacci is really about nature. There was a monk, Fibonacci, who was studying sacred geometry, and he knew that the golden mean had a distinct beginning but no end. But he didn't see that here on Earth. He couldn't find it. And so what he studied was plants, and that's where he realized this ratio. This 0 plus 1 is 1. 1 plus 1 is 2. 1 plus 2 is 3. He found that in the leaf structure of the plants, and so he realized that there is a divine proportion here on Earth that is just slightly different than the golden mean. And the Fibonacci has a distinct beginning and a distinct end. Okay, so it doesn't go on into infinity. There's distinct end. And so when you see it laid out in a diagram, the Fibonacci at a certain point begins to look exactly like the golden mean, but it's just slightly off, just slightly. And most people, that's what most people get confused. The nautilus shell, right? You guys have seen that, haven't you? And say, when they show nature and they're talking about sacred geometry, they show the nautilus shell, and they talk about the nautilus shell as the golden mean. It's not. It is in divine proportion, but it's not the golden mean. It's the Fibonacci. There's a distinct beginning and a distinct end. And when I first started studying this, I realized I really got this one. I understood it in its essence, in the spirit of it. Right? Is that the golden mean is the creator and is perfect in its divine proportion, perfect. The Fibonacci is we try to replicate that, the golden mean, the creator, and we can get so close, but it's not quite perfect. We're godlike because we've been given their tools from the creator, but we're not perfect. And so that's what the Fibonacci does. It shows us that in a divine way. There's that proportion. It's still a divine proportion, but it's not the golden mean. There's two distinct ones. There's the one here on Earth, which is the Fibonacci. And the Fibonacci is really, it's kind of cool when you take a look at leaves of any plant, and you can see how they go from one side to the other. And if you count them, you'll see the Fibonacci ratio. Yeah. Hey, Christine's here. My sister's here. Thank you, Rob. Rob's got a Wikipedia Fibonacci link. Thank you. I appreciate that. Rochelle's saying real good info. Interesting. Yeah. She says, I feel like I need to take notes. Oh, you can if you want. You can just re-listen to it too, because it's recorded. You can always re-listen to the recording. Christine's giving me one of those high emoticons. High. There is the golden mean. if you have like a rectangular room, you can do the measurements. And you know what? I'm going to have to post that because there is a specific measurement ratio to get the golden mean, to get it into the divine proportion. Right? If you want to be exact, you can measure it out into feet and inches. And so you can get the divine proportion of any rectangular room. When you're doing a room that's not rectangular, it's a little bit more difficult. It can be done, but there's a little bit more to it. And when I was practicing feng shui and I was a practitioner of feng shui, when I would go in to help set up a space for feng shui, I would do that. I would take the measurements and figure out the divine proportion and then start furniture placement. And you can feel it. You might not know the mathematics of it, the measurements of it, or anything like that. But when you walk into a room that's set up in the divine proportion, the golden mean, that you can feel it before you actually understand that. Oh, and practitioners, feng shui practitioners, when we walk into a space, of course we feel it, but we can tell when that room has been feng shuied and sacred geometry has been used. Yeah. Kind of cool. All right, so this is the first card, right? And so in the layout, it goes on the right-hand side, and so we're taking in this information through our mental mind. It's masculine energies. It's the logic, right? Even though the divine, the golden spiral is meant to be in a spiritual sense, the golden spiral is in divine proportion. Okay. All right. The golden spiral. The second card that came, I can find it now. One of the platonic solids. This is the octahedron. Octahedron. Right? And according to the Francine, it represents the child. The child. It's got 8 triangular faces. Like I said, it's one of the platonic solids, and I like the way Christine, I just saw her name again, it's like Francine. I like the way Francine phrases this of the platonic solid. She calls them cosmic wisdom. Cosmic wisdom. And there's 5 of them. And the octahedron is one of them. She says the card honors your inner child. You're being asked to remember to connect with that perfect being within. Play with the reason for your inquiry. So I was asking, the intention for the card draw was what energy is most important for us to know about today. That was the inquiry. So it's curiosity, right? It's curiosity, and that is very childlike. Rob says the platonic solids are better known as D&D dice. Yes, that's true. That's very true. But you know what's really cool is that if you want to get the platonic solids to look at, all you have to do is buy the D&D dice. Really, they're probably a little bit cheaper than getting the platonic solids, because you can get them in almost any kind of stone, because they're cut. They're designed out of stone. So if you wanted them in rose quartz, or if you wanted them in obsidian, or you can get them that way. Yep. So it's nice. But the D&D dice is probably just a little bit more affordable. Okay, so she says, Francine says, the card also asks us to lighten up. Your child is curious and adventuresome, and sometimes even reckless, but always in a state of growth. Listen to this magical part of yourself and honor the messages you receive. So when we're talking about our inner self, when referring to it, right, is that it's not, that part of us is not outside of us ourselves. It's not over there, and talking about it like it's separate from ourselves. It's an aspect of us, right? So it's kind of nice when you hear somebody say, my inner child, that they're talking about themselves rather than phrasing the inner child, or, the inner child. I'm trying to find my inner child or take care of my inner child. That is, to me, when you call that aspect of you mine, is that you're claiming this, and it's an aspect of you, and so you start thinking about yourself, feeling about yourself in a holistic way, rather than bits and pieces, right? Yeah. All right. So, since I just finished up a class, I should have brought that over here. I'm going to go get the platonic solids, okay? Hang on. Hold on. I had this gifted to me years ago. It's in this nice little box, right? And when you open them, they have these, right? And what I did is I used, it's like kind of like styrofoam in a way. It's bendable though. And I use the colors that the platonic solids represent. Okay. And it's kind of like okay, you can see the medicine wheel colors here, right? Yeah. And then for students, what I did was I cut out the paper ones, and I have them taped on with their names for a couple of reasons. One is that you get to learn how to spell them. And when you're going to put them away, you actually get them in the right box, the right round circle. So, so here's the octahedron that we just talked about. Here's the octahedron, and these are clear quartz crystal. And so you can kind of see, let's see if I can hold it like that. It's kind of hard because it's clear quartz, it's kind of hard to see. Hold it against my hand. Yeah. So the octahedron, when I saw that Francine called the octahedron child, right? In the creation story about, from a sacred geometry point of view, belief system is that the prime creator who created God, right, wanted to experience movement. And the prime creator, what this entity did, this spirit did, is that it just a straight line from A to B, straight line, and wanted to experience movement. And so they spun this straight line. And in the spinning of the straight line, on the ends of the straight line, it was spinning so fast is that you could see a line being formed, which we call a circle, right? We call a circle. And in these two circles, the prime creator then wanted to experience a relationship. What is relationship? And so spun another circle, spun another line, created another circle, and started moving them together, closer and closer together, until they started to overlap. And in that overlap, there was a spark of light. And that's where we get the Vesica Piscis from. And from the Vesica Piscis, in that movement, another movement, this is the first Platonic solid that was created, is the octahedron. The octahedron. Let's see. I should have here. Let me see if we can see it better this way. Can you see it better this way if I have something behind it? Maybe not. Maybe not. That doesn't help, does it? All right. The next time we share more about the Platonic solids, I'm going to use Be Live TV app, our partners at Be Live, and I can have the images, okay, for you. But I wanted to show you these. The octahedron. And so the octahedron was the very first Platonic solid created by the prime creator. And the octahedron carries the element of air, And in my study of the medicine wheel from my culture, the Potawatomi, is that we place the element of air in the east. So the Platonic solid, the octahedron, is placed in the east. Yeah. There we go. A little stuff about the octahedron. Extra credit. But I like this little box. I was so excited when she gave it to me. And I thought, oh my gosh. Okay, so in the red one is the tetrahedron, right? The yellow is the hexahedron. Wait. Oh my goodness. We got those mixed up. Because the yellow should be the octahedron. The earth should have the white one, right? And the icosahedron is the blue. The water from in the west. The dodecahedron we have as black because it represents the void, spirit, ether, prana. Yeah. It's a nice little kit to have. And I like the box. There we go. All right, so what can these two cards tell us in this card draw, right? Because the first one we got was the golden spiral about divine proportion, the golden mean. And the second one was the octahedron, the child, the firstborn. The firstborn. And you know, the child, as Francine put it, is curiosity and adventuresome. And so with the golden spiral, it's in that divine proportion. It is the golden mean, representing the creator, the prime creator. And so as I was thinking about these two cards coming together, is that we are a divine child. We're a divine child of God in our perfectness. Yeah, that's what I got out of it. That we have the ability to be as close as possible to the perfection of God. But that doesn't mean that we're perfect, because we're just slightly off from the perfection. And in that lies where I think our life lessons lie. Because we're here on this earth, grandmother earth, to learn, right? It's a school, and it's not an elementary school. It is a PhD program. It's a PhD program, and so that's what I got out of these two cards. I don't know. I'll be interested to see how you guys feel about these, how you took it in. Yeah, yeah. Rochelle says, I like that. Yeah. Hey, hello, Caitlin. I'm so glad you could join us. Yeah, on this Tuesday afternoon. So let's see how does this flow together with the information that Rob shared with us, about the politics, right? And if we can look at it from a more expanded perspective, a higher vibrational perspective than the 3D, right? Using the flow of energy that was shown to us today. I have to say, when I was reading about the octahedron, in Francine Hart's description of the child, there was one word used, and it was reckless. I was going to say an out of balance. Yeah, that's probably a good word to describe recklessness, right? That maybe how Cohen even got to where he was, it has to do with recklessness. And if we're watching someone going through soul growth, life lessons, seeing it from this energy field, we're seeing Cohen trying to be in the golden mean. The golden mean. The divine proportion. The golden spiral. I'm not saying that he is far from perfect. Far from perfect. There's no two-legged that is perfect. We're imperfect in degrees, right? Right. And so watching the energy flow and how it unfolds today, and how we're seeing it in the golden spiral with the octahedron. Maybe because in its uniqueness that how did that was put, let's see, Michael Cohen, surrendered to the FBI. They're expected to disclose the plea deal at 4:00. All right. So wouldn't you say that Cohen, in all of the investigation so far that we've seen or heard about, I think the last one that I really remember is Flynn's guilty plea and his plea bargain, because he was actually trying to protect his son. And so Michael Cohen is the next one, right? And so with the octahedron, remember, it's about thought, the spirit of air, thought, and literally the octahedron was the first platonic solid created. We'll have to see how that plays out. What happens at 4:00 ish? 10 to 1 will probably only be a lot later. But it's very interesting. So with this information, just be aware of your day. Watch, how has it unfolded already, and how is it going to finish up? Right? We have a few more hours to go. And how the energy unfolds, how it flows to you, flows around you, how it unfolds. So, maybe you've already experienced something today that's similar to this, the information. And if you have, were you a participant, a direct participant, or were you a witness? Kind of like we're witnessing Cohen's plea, we're not directly involved in it. We didn't make the plea. We didn't charge him with anything. Indirectly, we did as citizens, but it's more of a witnessing of what's going on. Like I say, just about every day is that, if this information about the sacred geometry resonates with you, embrace that resonance, embrace it, and see what it means for you. Ask your spiritual team, what does this mean? Show it to me with clarity. What does it mean in my life? How is it supposed to help me? Yeah. And if it didn't resonate with you, that's okay. You can leave it alone. It wasn't for you. It could have been we're just planting seeds, or you could be the messenger. Maybe you know someone that would enjoy the information or have been searching for it, which I forgot to do. Darn it. I forgot to ask you guys to like and share the broadcast. Should have done it at the beginning. Dang. Yeah. Caitlin saying perfect in out perfections. In and out. Our perfections. Yes. Perfect in our imperfections. That's correct. We weren't designed to be perfect. We were designed, our soul contracts are about our life lessons and what we're going to learn here, our soul growth. How do we use our gifts that we came in with? Because that's the expression of our soul, right? And so how do we do that? Or how are we learning our lessons? So we're not perfect, far from it. There is a belief. It's a Native American belief, and it doesn't go all across all tribal nations here in the United States on Turtle Island, but many. And that is that only the Creator is perfect. And so anything that we make has an imperfection because we're human. And so those mistakes aren't terrible mistakes. And there's some nations, tribal nations, who intend to put a mistake in. That kind of reminds me of the Navajo weavers down in the Southwest. They do put a mistake in, consciously put a mistake into their weaving, because humans are not perfect. We're not perfect. And it's also said that those places, that place where they put the imperfection, is kind of like they think it's called a spirit door or something like that. That is where spirit comes and goes from that weaving. There's a whole spiritual thing about the weaving, and ceremonies around it. And Rochelle says in the beginning of thank you, Rochelle. She shared the non-show. Thank you, Rochelle. I appreciate that. I didn't. I completely forgot. Like I said, this morning was very busy, and so when I came up here and actually my first break was at lunch because mom has to have her lunch at 12:30, and so that was my first break, was to be able to slow down enough to make her lunch and that sort of thing. So yeah. Completely forgot. So thank you, Rochelle, for doing that. All right. So enjoy the rest of your Tuesday. Tuesdays are always busy here at Star Nations. That one day a week is like flat out busy every week. So this afternoon was this broadcast. This evening at 8 p.m. Eastern is my show, Communications from Home. And Communications from Home this evening is about how do we ground what we've manifested to the earth plane? How do we ground it to the fourth and fifth dimension? Yeah, because most of us who are spiritually awake, consciously walking our earth life, most of us are already in the fourth dimension, or sliding into the fourth dimension, because Grandmother Earth is already in the fourth dimension and sliding into the fifth dimension already. So, I've been talking about this for weeks and weeks about grounding our what's manifested, grounding our gifts into the fourth dimension and fifth dimension. So join me, and guess who my guest is? My guest is, to help us to understand this, is Polly Jo LeBay. She is the host of Chakra Sessions and also Soul Connections here on Star Nations Radio Network live stream shows. And I wanted to talk to her about how we ground to the earth plane using our chakras. Yeah, that is my intention. I have questions. And I thought she's the best person that I know that can help us to understand it. Yeah. So enjoy the rest of your Tuesday. And hopefully we'll see you back here at Star Nations Radio Network main fan page, because that's where I broadcast Communications from Home from. And so hopefully join me and in the chat again, and we will chat it up about grounding to the earth plane. All right. Okay. Well, Bama Mina, that means until we see each other again. Love you guys.